Hello, this is Doishi here with another cheeky little interview. I am joined today by Dylan, aka Kakuna, who has recently got into the top 8 of the Axion Mega Weekend Saturday event that happened in the UK. Say hello.
Hi everyone, it's Dylan here, long-time Legacy fan, new enough to Doomsday in paper, so happy to get my first big event under my belt with a top 8.
Yeah, and a very good result it is. So, how was it that you came about Doomsday? Describe yourself as a player. You know, how did you get into Magic? How did you get into Legacy? And then how did you come across Doomsday for this event?
Well, starting Magic, I'm in my early 30s now, starting Magic would have been as a child when Scourge came out, because a neighbour played it, Magic. Couldn't say I'd ever done anything competitive other than casual, a few Type 1.5 tournaments, a few FNMs, pre-releases, one or two big country-related tournaments here in Ireland. Other than that, nothing competitive of the sorts. Kind of played like that, in and out of control decks up until maybe early Terros. Then I took a break until Wilds of Eldraine, zero Magic other than maybe 3 pre-releases in 10 years nearly. I kind of came back into Magic then with the mindset of, I have money now, I'm an adult now, I can travel to events.
I love being an adult. It means you can do all your childhood hobbies, but with money.
Yeah. You're not just trying to get jank out of a binder and put something together. You have a legit way to go, I want this. I can buy this. Oh my god, it's here. But yeah, no, coming back into Magic, I started off in Standard, because it would have been known as Type 2. Even when I went in, people looked at me because they didn't know what Type 2 was, when I went back into an LGS that I'd never been to before. After a few months of that, luckily, some of the players I knew from when I was a kid who would have been much older still played, didn't really phase out of the game. And they would have played the older formats. Now, Legacy in particular, when getting back into competitive Magic, or even just Magic in general, the content I was consuming was heavily Legacy based. Because I remember being young, I remember hearing how powerful the Yogg was.
Yeah.
And obviously that's not, for obvious reasons, that's not legal in Legacy. But
I mean, Guy as well has been recently doing a great impression with Beseech.
Yeah, and that was one of the lists I was going to take to Axion. But yeah, no, I just kind of got interested in the older cards, and I recognized a lot of cards. You know, when I saw Force of Will being played non-stop, I was like, this is cool. I remember playing Fairies in Lorwyn, and I saw Ponder was there, and it was like a staple holding the format together. Like, even Bosch and Roll Island Ponder Keep is a mainstay statement in Legacy. So I just consumed Legacy content only. Still didn't build into it though. I kind of went from Standard to Modern, not really enjoying Modern. Kind of went back to playing like Type 2 or Tier 2 decks like Millen and everything, not really taking it seriously. Until more recently, we decided to start doing RCQs, or like the old GPs, the new imitation of a GP, even though I've never actually been to a GP because I was out of the game at that time. And before that, I was too young. So the first deck I ever took to my first RCQ was Copenhagen last year, and it was Modern Oops All Spells.
Very nice. That's good, honest Magic, that is.
Oh yeah, the generic combo stuff is what I turned into. Then it was side events there. I had finally attained an underground seat, so I put together Death Shadow to play some Legacy. In the background while playing some Modern, I was picking up some Legacy staples. A lot of players in our community here in Cork is very heavily EDH, so they only need one of everything. So when it comes to getting multiple of old cards or staples, people are very happy to break sets apart. Like 2 people might go in together to get a play set of something off someone who wouldn't break a set, and then they'd have one each to trade.
Yeah.
So it was very handy for getting, staples like Force of Will, or Ponders, or Preordains, or Force of Negation, or Dual Lands. Well, Dual Lands are very hard to come by here, but fetch lands, everything, it kind of came the way you traded the EDH players to get the cards you wanted. Because they would crack boxes, obviously looking for the EDH staples. Constructive staples to go by the wayside. So I played a few side events at that, and I enjoyed it. And I was like, Paper Legacy is so good. Started playing MTGO around the same time as that RCQ. Played a very, very limited amount of Legacy when the tokens came out, the all access tokens. But I kind of found myself lingering back into Control to play like Check Pile and stuff. I just like the idea of turn 1 Thoughtseize into him, into Snap into him. It just felt like the most abusable, broken, fun stuff ever. Then transitioning from that, the Prague RCQ was earlier this year, and I had brought Doomsday with me. Now, I only played it in one side event, and it was a deck I was always lingering towards. I enjoyed combo, I enjoyed the fact that you could piece a puzzle together on limited resources. You're literally putting an ultimatum on the table, and either you stop me from winning in 2 turns realistically, not 5, or I'm just going to win. So I kind of like that. You're speeding up the game. You're forcing the game to speed up. Whether you win or lose is a different question.
Yeah, it's a deck that always gives you a break between rounds.
Exactly, and it's something I learned. It's something I learned very painfully because I played Oops All Spells originally in Copenhagen, and my rounds were over in 10 minutes. Now I started off really well. I think it was like 4-0 or 3-0 or something. The rounds were over in 10 minutes. It was great. In Prague, I brought Yawgmoth and Modern with me, and rounds went a long time. And I didn't like that. But no, even like at Axion, there was only one round that went near time.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it was round 2. Other than that, they were all pretty quick, which, you get to go meet other players, talk to other people, get more entrenched in legacy format. So, like, great benefits of that. Like, I had lots of good chat after our round with Luke. He's the ELM for UK, I think the ELM rep for UK. Had a good chat with him, and then even later on, before top 8 was announced, I had another chat with him because you just have so much time between rounds when you're playing a degenerate combo deck.
Yeah, it's great.
So, like, too long didn't read story of that. Started casually, very interested in control, took a long break from the game, came back with a serious mindset to actually just, travel and play things and, enjoy it a bit more while you have an adult with some income. Like, then the generative combo really took my eye. Like, every format now is just combo based. Doesn't matter what it is, it's combo. And Legacy obviously being the format where it's most renowned for everything is on the stack as opposed to on the board. Like, there's many intense games you have that there's no permanence in play other than maybe 2 basics, and a dual land is the only permanence in play.
Mm-hmm.
Just that kind of interaction, that back and forth it's good. I like it. It's very engaging as opposed to some of the more modern formats. I know modern itself is quite entertaining and have a lot of back and forth, but again, it is a lot of passing turn doing nothing, whereas Legacy is very stack based interaction. I feel it is anyway. And a lot of every piece actually matters. Like, even decks that like debt and taxes use permanents in play that limit resources. Everything is very prioritizing resource management over absolutely everything. Like,
yeah,
that's how I feel it is anyway from my limited, less than 2 years doing it. But yeah, so that's my road so far anyway.
Cool. So obviously, you've landed on Doomsday as deck. So going to the leading up to the Axion thing, did you specifically go, right, I want to play Doomsday for this event based on what you had said for the side events from the other one? Or were you like umming and ahhing between a few? Like, obviously you say you've played like Oops in Modern. Were you interested in maybe playing like Oops in Legacy? Or
yeah, so like so Oops in Legacy was an option. Oops was a deck that I wanted to build anyway because obviously it just looks very fun and obviously it's very budget in Legacy. But once I started picking up the dual lands and the additional underground seas as I went, like even in Prague, I don't think I had the 4 underground sea yet. I think I was only sitting on 3. So it would have been 3 UC and 2 Watergrave in that list. And I only played one side event with it and I didn't do great. And it was kind of the case is I loved watching the deck play. I had learned very basic lines. I had practiced very minimally. It wasn't something I was very confident in. But after that event, I consumed a lot more Legacy content, more specifically Doomsday content. I enjoyed it, even though I got absolutely smashed. I did enjoy it, and then for the next event, I played Death Shadow again. It's just an easy transition to go to like a non-combo deck when you have Doomsday cards, because not really too much is changing. A few Death Shadow, you still have Thought Seizes anyway, you still have Street Rates, so it's very easy to bring two of the decks with you in one deck box, because they share such a central shell. Like, but when it came to picking a list for this event, I had practiced on MTGO. I played a few leagues, I was doing okay. Done a lot of gold fishing with it on leagues, and I was like, I'm a bit more confident, but I wasn't feeling it. So I was actually Luca Fasoli, he has the DDFT list there with guys willing to beseech the mirror.
Yep.
He started that stuff. I actually had built that for the event, and in some very little testing, I thought the deck was unbeatable if you opened up an Abundant Growth, a Petal, and a Beseech the Mirror. When you don't open up on that, I did not enjoy the deck. So I was like, you know what? My favourite deck to play is just Doomsday. It's my favourite deck to watch. I am going to just go for it. So then it became to finalising the 75. And the amount of times I've showed the 75 and I've gotten criticism, both good and bad, because there is some older tech in it as opposed to what the modern lists are currently running, as in the modern archetypes of Doomsday, not modern the format.
So what we'll do is so anyone who's obviously listening or watching this, I'll make sure there's a link to the deck list in the description for this. But looking at it, it's a bit spicy compared to a lot of lists these days. So notable things that I'll just highlight. So you're quite low on petal. You've only got 2 petal in there. You've got a single Cabal Ritual. A lot of people are on like 2 these days. You've got the full 4 days in there. 2 Veil of Summer, so we've got a bit of a green splash. The Deep Analysis is in there. 1 Lorien Revealed. 2 Night's Whisper. Only 2 Personal Tutor. A single discard in the main in terms of 1 Thoughtseize. And then the sideboard, we've got some elements. So you've got the Emrakul package with Sheldar Coil. You've got 2 Sheoldreds, 2 Subtleties, Relic of Progenitus, some Bowmasters, Opposition Agent, Mystical Dispute, only 2 Force Negation, which some people would say sacrilege. A Bayou. I'm always a big fan of lands and sideboards, that's fine, and the Veil of Summer as well. So let's focus on the main first, and let's go with the first question. This is not that fast a list. This is quite a slow list, because obviously you've got 2 Night's Whisper, you've only got 2 Personal Tutor. What turn are you aiming to go off with this?
My plan was turn 3. Resource Exchange turn 1 and 2. Now, I had games where I put Doomsday on the stack in 1 turn 2 in this event. But the main objective wasn't to just screen Doomsday into play and go through the pile. I'm very aware that, Bowmasters is a thing in the format. Being too aggressive leaves you open to Bowmaster damage, especially double Bowmaster. So I decided the slower list, and I didn't actually decide this list. It was a stream that I watched maybe a week and a half before the event, and Kai Saratari was playing this list, but with one difference. He played a Preordain over the Deep Analysis.
Okay.
He went with that list. I watched him play it. He done well. I can't remember, was it a 4-1, but I liked it. It seemed to have a good matchup against everything.
Yep.
It just seemed to be balanced enough that it would have a fair game against everything. Now, the spicier picks, I know it's sacrilegious as well about Cabal Ritual, because everyone's using 2. I actually don't want any.
I mean, I think Cabal Ritual is fine to cut, but it's interesting to see the low Cabal Ritual and the low number of Lotus Petals together.
Yeah. Now, I don't actually fully understand why we're on 2 petals. The list he had configured was on 2 petals. I play tested it with 2 petals, and most of the time it felt enough. There was periods, where I would I'd love to open an additional petal. And I think it would be a cut I'd make, is the Cabal Ritual for a 3rd petal. I do think that would be a cut I would make, or the Cabal Ritual for another piece of discard. And the big criticism I had about choosing this list before I started playtesting it a bit was the lack of discard. Thoughtseize is my favourite card in Magic, since I played it when I was young. It's just 1 mana, let me see what you're doing. And obviously there's a lot of just, Thoughtseize in and of itself has a whole breakdown of what's good, what's bad, how to Thoughtseize, everything. I just love casting the card. So going from someone who loves making people discard cards or defending myself with discard cards, going to 1 discard in the main was the focal point I didn't like. But even the day before the event, we done some testing in a local shop in Birmingham. And the 1 discard seemed enough. At most times, because of the aggressiveness of 4 days, the 1 discard as protection before you crack the pile or in the pile seemed quite efficient, allowing you to keep 2 lands in play as opposed to bringing days into the pile, so you could still have the double Edge of Autumn kind of the draw effect in the pile. So I like that matter about it. Other spicy picks in the list you pointed out, Lorien Reveal, going to make a pretty big a big accusation saying it's probably the best card in the list.
Whoa, that is a hot take.
It's a hot take. But ritualing into drawing 3 is pretty solid as the worst possible effect of that card. I was able to crack piles under Narset with it. I was able to pitch it to Force of Will.
Yeah.
I didn't play against the Blood Moon, but in testing I played against Blood Moon. And being able to use Lorien Reveal to get your basic island when your fetch lands are turned off is unbelievable. It still gives you a game, because there's more or less a slow deck unless they get, one of the goblins down quickly to start putting pressure on your life. You still have plenty of time to ponder for a petal to kind of get into the Dark Ritual to go Doomsday anyway. It just, every time I had it in my hand, it felt great. I kept 1 land hands with a Lorien Reveal and a Force of Will. With the thing, I'll stop there, degenerate stuff, and I will get my land at the end of the turn if needed. I feel it's so flexible for 1 card. What it can leave you do pre and post Doomsday is very powerful, and at the end of the day, it's an Ancestral Recall effect at its worst. So I think I will be keeping it in my main deck going forward anyway. Other cards, I'm trying to remember what you call it. Deep Analysis is the big one.
Deep Analysis, yeah. So obviously this one was kind of brought in back when Consider was first printed, because it enables the most resource efficient pile in terms of mana and cards in hand. It's a little bit fragile though, but Did it pull its weight? Did it do its thing?
Yeah, it's if like I didn't track exactly the percentage, but it is the card that I boarded out the most, and it is the card that won games won the most. So, for instance, like I remember one of the rounds, we'll talk a bit more about it in detail, was against Acast, and whether it be like my opponent they played optimally, from what I can see, maybe one misplay because they didn't understand the deep analysis line. Again, it is a piece of old tech. I know Consider is still relatively new, and it kind of got its popularity back, but it's kind of fallen off since. People are more fond of cracking piles with Brainstorm. But again, on a deck where I've cut a land for Lorien Reveal, I'm down to 15 in the main.
I mean, I run 15 in the main anyway. I would consider 15 a normal amount of lands to run.
with just 2 petal, though?
4 petal.
Exactly. So there's a small bit of difference. So, like, having the way to win the game on the spot with very little resources just appeals to this list. And, like, even after I got to top 8, I was confident in it before the top 8. Even after I got to top 8 and I put it in, like, Sarah Tarek's Discord and I said, look, I top 8 with your list with this one change, I went back to deep analysis. Deep analysis served the other function as well as, even if you don't do a deep analysis line, it again pitches the force of it. It's just this thing. How many things can protect me? Again, I'm a slower list. Okay, I have some pace with Dark Rituals. I have 2 petals. There's a Cabal Ritual. There is some pace in the list, but it is a slower list. So another card that can both win me the game on the spot and also be pitchable if needed. It just fills 2 roles for me very quickly. Again, cracking the LED to do the whole deep analysis shenanigans to win straight away is obviously a huge benefit of it. But there's lists where I did pitch the deep analysis and I won without it. But it is a card that I'm very high on in the current format. It gives you the pace needed. Like you start slow, you might daze 1 or 2 things. You might, well, hopefully you're not dazing 2 things. But if needed, you have the ability to daze a few things and still go off with 1 land in play. It's very efficient when it comes to having 4 days as interaction. Whether I play it and I cut dazes and I cut more aggressive defensive features of the deck, I'm not sure. I do like it. I'm very high in it. I like the fact even if it's stuck in your hand before the Doomsday point, you can just crack the LED anyway and set it up that way. I just like its versatility. I think it'll be very hard to get me off the pedestal no matter how much facts you present me. I don't think I'd cut it. It's 1 card out of 60 that has a lot of leeway. Again, I see the list, there's some weird cards, but there's flexibility in them. I just think it still has enough power to do it.
I mean, from my perspective, I don't care how you build your list, so long as you personally can justify to yourself the number of cards you're running and why you're running them, then it's all good by me.
Fair enough, I'll take that win.
So, final card in the main, we'll talk about 2 Night's Whisper. So obviously we mentioned Bowmasters, it's kind of the current meta warper, there's a lot of scam going around, it's been integrated into Delverlist, into Shadowlist, into Fair decks, it's all over the place. Night's Whisper might be a bit of a spicy include in a Bowmasters world, so why did you go for that, and why did you go for 2 of them instead of, say, like Ideas Unbound, or just relying on the deep analysis or Consider/brainstorm piles?
So again, I like the list, Sarah Tari's list that I saw like maybe a week and a half, 10 days before the event, had the 2, and I know he's very high on the card. He loves the card. I did cut to 1, and I'm trying to remember what I brought in, but I didn't like it. I like the fact in games. I suppose it goes to show that the format's very strong with Brainstorm again. The fact is, in a matchup, it can be 2 dead cards against Bowmaster, especially in a Bowmaster world where you're actually going to take 3, 4 with the ETB, and you only draw 2, and then they're threatening 3 power in play. It's a 7 life swing very quickly. But I just like the fact that it's very free draw 2 in a lot of matchups. You can sit back and comfortably take 2 and draw 2. Now, it did backfire against me in the event, because there's one matchup in particular I did not want to cast it at all, and I kept drawing it in game 1, but these things happen. Look, it was in the list. I opted to keep it in the list. I made 1 swap. I think it was a Grief I brought in. I think I played 1 Whisper, 1 Grief, because I wanted a second discard outlet, and again, with the efficient pile I'm going with deep analysis, and the fact after you crack LED, you can't keep interaction up like Force of Will. So I was using like the freeness of Grief. But I don't know why I changed away from Grief. Can't remember the exact reason, just I didn't like it. I remember I had a few practice games against Reanimator, but I don't even remember So one of the friends that came with me played Reanimator. I don't even remember it being an issue there. I don't remember even casting it there. I don't know, was that like, he played a Reanimator and I was of the opinion, yeah, the last time we played Paper, there was a few Reanimators in our top 4 in Ireland. And I was like, maybe there'd be more Reanimator there, and I don't really want to be feeding into that. So it was kind of like a snap decision the night before to kind of go back, or maybe the day before, yeah, because we flew early morning. So the night before we flew, so 2 days before the event, but I was already locked in England with my Decklist choice. I couldn't change it, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's the reason, but I'm pretty sure it was a grief I had over the second one. Now, I'd probably play 1. I still like the card. I think 2 is a bit excessive. It's something I would definitely relook at, like 2 cards that, out of all the 75, the 2 cards I'm very iffy on, or sorry, the main board 60, is the second Night's Whisper and the Cabal Ritual. They're the 2 cards I'm the most iffy on in that deck list. I'm fairly confident in the other 58. Well, maybe not some of the fetch lands. The fetch lands, as you see, they're not the most consistent. There is a clash, and that was literally because before we flew, I couldn't find the correct fetch lands, so I just took 2 Verdant Catacombs out of Modern.
Yep.
Because Yawgmoth plays 4, and they were just 2 easy picks, and I was like, yeah, look, they fetch Underground Seas. They don't fetch the island, but they fetch the other lands. Maybe I'd swap them as well for blue fetches. Maybe I'd mix match, just go 1 extra, so 1 Scalding Tarn and 1 other Misty or something, you know.
With the fact that specifically because you've got the bio in the sideboard, I think you might be on the 4/4 Delta.
Yeah, I might
Rainforest.
Exactly. Yeah. I think exactly that. But it was just something that it was more of, oh no, my flight's in 5 hours and I don't want to dig through my collection looking for extra fetches. And I was like, look, I don't think it's going to matter too much. It's just the island. I have a Lorien Reveal. It can get the island off of Catacombs.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. So they would be the 4 main changes, I suppose. The Verdant Catacombs, probably to Misties, and 1 Night's Whisper and 1 Cabal Ritual would probably be the main changes I'd make. In terms of what I'd like another discard card, more interaction that way. I'd also like to have, it seems weird, but the amount of times I really wanted a Fatal Push in my piles, you know, it might be a weird main board card, but I do kind of want to squeeze a Fatal Push somewhere in the 75.
What are the threats that you're wanting to hit with the Fatal Push then?
Bowmaster and Shieldred. Shieldred was annoying. Thankfully, I didn't play it in the main event of Axion, but Shieldred is very annoying in a deck that I'm already playing Night's Whisper, Deep Analysis, 5 Cyclers, and of course the standard Ponders and Brainstorms.
Yeah.
And a one-off Ancestral effect. You know, Shieldred hurts. Now, I didn't play against it in the main, thankfully, but it's something I definitely would be more concerned about again. So, I don't know. I just think maybe one-off creature removal somewhere in the 75 might be better. You know, debt and taxes, while they're often slow and it's a matchup you can easily squeeze, there's a lot to be said when I'm playing the deep analysis package that's very tight on resources to be able to push it first out of the way and then go for the win straight away above it. Something like that, because otherwise every other effect costs a bit extra. So I'm not sure how I'd like to take it. I'm going to play a few more leagues with it, and we have an event this weekend where I might make a few changes because I'm expecting some death and taxes. Because I remember the last time we had an Irish event, there was 2 players on it, and they messed me up both times. So maybe I'll add in the spicy Fatal Push or Cut Down or something. I can't remember exactly what Cut Down is. Does Cut Down kill Shieldred? I think it's combined value.
It's combined value.
Yeah, so I'd have to find something. Shieldred and Bowmasters are the main 2 things that annoy me. Obviously, the Dragon's Rage Channeler getting out of hand has its own merits as well. Grief can be annoying, but they're just going to reanimate it again. You know, these are things that kind of speed up the clock on you in a deck where your life is very important. So that's kind of where I go with that. And then I don't know, is the 2 Veil of Summer spicy in the main?
A lot of people have been going to green now, especially with Bowmasters being so popular.
This is the thing. When I was playing it and they were like, I was splashing green for only Veil of Summer, some people kind of, like people I know might have had a question about it, or even my opponent, one opponent's like, you Veils in the main? You know, things like this. It's like, it's such a good card against everything. So many things are blue based. Scam is everywhere. Outside of shutting off Bowmasters, it protects your other spells. I like 2 Veil in the main. And again, if it's irrelevant to the matchup, it's a very easy, quick sideboard cut. You know exactly what's coming out when it's not relevant.
Yeah.
Obviously, it sucks when you have 2 dead cards against a matchup that's not relevant, but when we go through the list, but the rounds I've played, you will see that it was relevant in the entirety of the Swiss in every game. It had playability in every matchup. I'm quite high on 2 Veil in the main.
Right, so let's jump to the sideboard now. So I already mentioned most of the things in there. Very creature heavy. very creature-heavy sideboard, which, if you've ever seen me ranting on Discord, which many people have, probably too many people, they know that I do not like creatures as creatures.
Right, I think
sell me on this. Sell me on the sideboard.
My guidance on this comes from do you remember when Shoulder first came out and Max Thorson had the argument oh, it's Doomsday, we'll take out all our removal.
Yeah.
And Shoulder just killed people left and right like it was nothing. Then it was a case of, right, first off, I think every Doomsday sideboard forever and more I will play Shelldock Emrakul. I think there's nothing more satisfying than pivoting to that plan. Especially in endurance matchups. I know I have the relic that also helps with that. So I don't think Emrakul and Shelldock will be shifting anytime soon. As opposed to the other creature, in terms of the other creatures, you're on about the 2 force negation, 2 subtlety. Well, you're on about creatures and you're on about sacrilegious to play only 2 force negation.
A lot of people live by 4 force negation.
Yeah.
In the sideboard, because it can act as your removal, it can act as your stopping whatever they're doing, it can act as defense. It's got a lot of use for it.
Yeah. And I agree. But Force of Negation doesn't stop Grief, and it doesn't stop Bowmaster. And there are 2 cards that are, again, Scam is everywhere. The Scam can be a relatively budget deck. I know it's not as budget as Death Shadow, because you still need more Underground Sea, but people who would have had 1 Underground Sea playing Shadow for such an event, one of their friends who wasn't going, they could easily borrow a second one and make a fairly playable Scam list with 2 Underground Sea. So coming into this, even though it might sound a bit redundant that I took very life-aggressive cards like Night Whisperer and Deep Analysis in the main, in that kind of meta, I also wanted game against it in Game 2 and 3, which is why the split happened. I've also seen the split happen in other people's lists. I've seen some lists that split the 4 force into 2 subtlety. It's a split I like. I do think Force of Negation has better matchups with the Exile effect. I'm just not worrying about things coming back, because I did play against a Snapcaster Mage, and I would have loved for the Thoughtseize to have been exiled. Protect the rest of my hand. It's a game 1 that I lost, but I think it's the only game 1 I lost other than the top 8 in the whole tournament. But other than that, I don't know, Subtlety is very good. I can't say confidently, other than 1 game where it actually mattered, that the split happened, where I actually subtletied something to win, to enable my next turn win. Other than that, I don't think I did it once, but once is enough. I can't recall a position where I would have liked an additional force other than maybe that Thoughtseize. So I don't know. I'm open to debate on both sides. I like the 2/2. Would I stick with 2/2? It depends on what I'm expecting. If I'm continuing in a Bowmaster world with a Scam world, I'd probably stick 2/2. If something happens with Grief in the near future, or even Bowmaster, I might look at a 3/1 towards Force of Negation. But at the moment, I'm quite happy with a 2/2. Other picks in the sideboard creature-wise, Bowmasters. While it won me a game on its own against 8cast, I don't know about it. It wasn't as strong. Now, it's also a misplay by me. Unfortunately, throughout most of the Swiss, I played quite tightly. There's a few faults, but nothing overly drastic. One that cost me a game, but other than that, in the top 8, whether it be Nerves or my first big top 8, or a long day, I didn't play optimally, and I probably wouldn't have brought in the Bowmasters. I also misjudged what I was playing against. So, I don't know, I'm uncertain about the Bowmasters on my side. The Shielders in the side, it's a great pivot. I know there's some discussion back and forth. I know very recently in the server, people are talking about Murktide, and you know what? I'm not against it. I think with the amount of spells, and the amount of spells, especially in my slower list, that's willing to cast Daze willy-nilly, it's willing to cast Night's Whispers, these things draw you to the Murktides, these things make the Murktides big. Cycling the Lorien Reveal, it's very easy to fill with the interaction and the kind of draw pieces I have, not only to find Murktide but feed it quite drastically. So it's something I might actually test, because I do like the appeal of it. Now, whether I'd cut both Bowmasters for Murktide, I'm unsure. I'm not sure what to do with the Bowmasters at the moment. Obviously, it's a Bowmaster world. It's great against other Bowmasters. It's probably the main reason I picked it, but it never came up. I never got the Bowmaster another Bowmaster. So, I'm iffy on it. Now, if it done its job and I played against a lot of Bowmaster decks, and it Bowmastered every other Bowmaster, of course, I'd be 100% staple in the sideboard for me.
Yep.
But didn't really come up, even though I know the deck is everywhere. And I didn't play the deck once. So I didn't play against Scam once, even though I kind of prepped for Scam. But I kind of I kind of think the list was solid as in the main 60 anyway, because I prepped for a scam world in many ways. Obviously, left myself unprepared by taking 2 Night's Whisper and a deep analysis. But again, you don't have to cast the deep analysis in general. And again, of course, drawing 2 cards and only taking 1 pre-Doomsday technically you're going to half your life anyway. So, it is theoretically 1 damage, I suppose. 1 point, really, you can kind of sneak away with. The Bowmasters are very iffy for me. I think it's a bit slower than what I'm already doing, but it does have game against other Bowmasters, of course, and obviously it's very good against Death and Taxes. Pinging, granted, they mightn't draw a card, but putting blockers on the board to protect your life and pinging off the Talia is fairly solid. So I'm iffy. I can't defend it one way or the other. I know why it's there. I know what it's good for. It just didn't come up.
All right, then. So let's go on to the event now. So obviously it's the Saturday, 7 rounds? 7 rounds Swiss?
7 rounds Swiss, yeah.
Yeah, 7 rounds Swiss. So round 1, I can see your notes here. We've got Tess. So the Epic Storm, a deck I would consider to be a very favourable matchup for Doomsday. How did it go?
It was a 2-0. Game 1, I went into this thing as well as knowing the scam was going to be popular, that I tried to disguise as many as my plays as a scam deck for the game ones.
Yep.
It's a thing you will see. I played every game at the start as if I was on scam.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I didn't reveal too much, didn't do the personal tutor stuff, just hit as much cards as I can, just made it look like I was scam as much as I could, just constantly doing, the constant blue-black fetching, didn't touch the tropical islands until Veil of Summer was relevant.
Yep.
Like there was game ones I won and they never saw a tropical island. And it's not something they're skimming through your deck for after you Doomsday, whether you have a tropical island. It's not something they're open to looking. Now they might see the Veil of Summer or whatever, but they're not going to really pay too much attention that they're looking for how many forces you have, whatever. Game 1, I'm pretty sure, I played it like scam, because even Luke was my opponent, he commented that he thought it might have been scam, and obviously because the deep analysis pile is so efficient, when I did the Dark Ritual Doomsday, obviously he knew he was in for Doomsday.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize the Epic Storm in its current form, lack of experience or whatever have you. I didn't recognize he was on the Epic Storm. He played, I'm trying to remember, was it a Taiga or a Plateau?
Probably a Tiger, because they have a weird mana base now. they've had it for a year and a bit now, at least.
And I was unfamiliar. Like, I knew Luke from a previous ELM stream. I recognized him, but I couldn't place him. I was like, I know this person as I was playing. It wasn't revealed till after the matchup when we were talking for a bit. But they got a Taiga, so is what it was, and they played like a Chrome Mox and a Mox Opal or something. And I was like, I have no idea what's going on here. But by the time they'd done anything, I had already won the game. And then game 2, more telltale signs appeared, Burning Wish was cast and everything. But again, I did the traditional Doomsday thing, and they didn't have the interaction to prevent me. It was a fairly quick 2-0. We spent a lot of time just talking about Legacy then in general. It's a matchup I would consider favourable anyway from everything I've seen, watched, read, learned, listened to. It's not we're faster in general. You have to commit a lot to do a little. I know we commit a lot, but it's after the fact. We've already put pressure on saying, you need to win now, or stop me from winning now. We commit very little to get set up. It's after we get set up, especially with the Deep Analysis package, you commit everything then.
Agreed. Right, so round 2 then?
Round 2 was the most stressful matchup of the entire tournament.
Okay, so Grixis.
Yeah, so when I sent you the breakdown the last day, I thought it was Grixis Tempo. I would still consider it Grixis Tempo, but it's splashing that new Druid or Dryad. The red-green one that has like the Reckless Impulse instant as the Adventure.
Oh. Okay, interesting.
From Wells Eldraine. So it was 4 colour, but it was all Grixis Tempo cards. It's basically end of turn, it's an instant adventure, they exile the top 2 cards, they have until the end of their next turn to cast them. So it's kind of like their new pseudo expressive iteration, but it also has a threat on one side. So it seems like a good card. This matchup was stressful. Very, very stressful. Game 1, I lost.
Okay.
And game 1, we exchanged a lot of resources, my life was low. They had no threats. So I kind of managed the board well. It's what the aggressive days list can help you do. I had Doomsday. I took a slow pile initially because once I saw what I was against, I knew Bowmasters were a thing. I saw Dress Down, so it was going to have to be a double Torkoal pile. I saw a few things. But what actually happened is I had built the pile. I can't remember the exact 5 card configuration, but I had built the pile to cover me against the Thoughtseize, because I believe I had Thoughtseized them earlier, and I saw one. But I think I took the Bowmaster because it could have killed me with the pile that I had took. So I prepared my deck that it was against the Thoughtseize, and they actually Thoughtseized into Thoughtseize on a multiple turn pass thing. Now, there might have been a misplay in there, I can't recall exactly, but I did lose game 1 because of a double Thoughtseize. And it's something that really irked me. Now, obviously, it was pre-Sideboard, so I didn't even have access to Force Negation, but it would be the one time where I'm like, in a list where I do have a lot of days, but I took an Edge of Autumn pile, I couldn't afford to days and keep passing turns without establishing mana base, because I'm pretty sure I only had 1 land when I went to Doomsday. So it's a game when I lost. Whether I misplayed, I'm guessing I did. I should have taken a more aggressive pile. I think it was just, I don't know, I wasn't expecting exactly what they had. They had like bowls, they had Thoughtseize. I know I saw Collingan's Command at one point. I didn't know exactly what to take to assemble a good pile against them. Game 2, when I had a much better idea, I actually brought in the Bowmasters to help. I brought in Shoulder to help. It was actually a game where I'd taken out 1 days and brought in the Mystical Dispute. I had, I'd made changes like that, and it worked out. Now, the pile I took in that matchup was very aggressive, as in I did take the Deep Analysis pile. Now, the Deep Analysis pile came after the fact that I had already multiple times Veiled the Summer them, so, it was fantastic. And even the pile I took after I had Veiled once or twice was a triple Veil pile.
Wow.
Because I had Thassa's Oracle stuck in my hand, and I was afraid of more Thoughtseize. So it was like, in my head it was like time walk them every turn kind of thing, And the last 2 cards in the pile, it mightn't have been a triple. I know I had 3, but I might have had 1 Veil in hand. But it was definitely, I did have all 3 in the sequence of breaking that pile. And it was double Torkoal then, and some other random card. That ended up winning that matchup. And then the big one was I could take weird, obscure piles. Now, I know I could have went very different, but Veil is very much a crutch against Bowmaster. It allows you to, which actually happened in game 3 to win. I knew they were holding up Bowmaster. It was very obvious they were holding up Bowmaster. So I made the pile. I passed turn. Actually, before I cracked the pile, I got the Tropical Island. Passed turn, so they probably knew I was holding up. They played Bowmaster. I Veiled in response to cracked the pile the whole way down while Bowmaster's triggers on the stack, so they weren't getting any extra pings on me, down to 1 card, which was the Thassa's Oracle, and I had 1 in hand with the Cavern drawn, so there was no way they had enough interaction to stop all that, and I had 1 Veil then left as well to protect against any shenanigans on my own turn. So that's kind of what happened, but it was very much a sequence where Veil was the big crutch that held that entire pile together again for the 2nd game in a row. So I would have passed turn, end of turn they would have flashed in Bowmaster. While it was on the stack, I put in Veil so they couldn't target me. Veil cracked the pile, cycle, all this. Veil is very much a crutch in that matchup. It was a very stressful game. I really had to think outside the box. Couldn't go for any brainstorm piles. Couldn't go for the traditional Deep Analysis pile as much as I'd like. There was a real threat of dress down, so every pile was double Torkoal. The Veil of Summers again stopped everything. Stops discard, stops Thoughtseize, stops Bowmaster. It's just such a clutch card. It's so good. It's phenomenal. It's brilliant. I can't comment on how good the card is enough. Eventually, obviously, I won that game then, putting me 2-0 into round 3, which is against the spiciest list at the event. I think was 5-0 at the time, or 4-0.
You've listed it as Mono Blue Brew.
Yes.
So what does that mean? Because I've seen a lot of Mono Blue spicy decks in my time, and I have no idea what this could be.
No, I have a link to it somewhere. I got the link for it, so I will. So you can post it afterwards as well. But I will get the link. But it's basically 4 Wasteland, 4 Stifle, 4 Thing in the Ice, 4 True Name Nemesis, 4 Ponder. It was just blue stuff.
Ah, yes. Mono Blue Tempo.
Yeah, but it was a Thing in the Ice that really got me. I wasn't expecting Thing in the Ice. And the person was, I think we were both 2-0 at the time. So game 1, it kind of, I lost 0-2 before anyone wonders what happened. It's the only game I lost in the Swiss. And it's because I didn't know what to do after game 1. I was shook. I was not expecting it. I'm trying to recall if I Thoughtseized them at any point in game 1, because they played exceptionally well. Rewinding, I've thought about the game a lot, even spoke to them a lot after it. The amount of times they had to stifle fetchlands and didn't. There was I think they went first. They had a chance in turn 1 to do it. They didn't do it. So Stifle just left my thought. So eventually the game played out. I think they had a Thing in the Ice down to one counter left before flipping to the horror, and I had cracked the Doomsday pile. Now the Doomsday pile I took had multiple backups. I Veiled in my upkeep. They forced. I forced their force. and I still had a Cavern of Souls in this pile when I cracked to win it, and they stifled the Tassa's Oracle trigger. They played exceptionally well to hide it for the entirety of the game, because the risk of loss for them was very relevant for a lot of the period of time, but they held it perfectly. And when they done that, I was like, oh wow, I'm against Wasteland and Stifle. On top of that, I don't know if people know the interaction with Thingy the Ice and Stifle, but you can stifle the trigger where it comes in with 4 counters, so it means your next instant sorcery flips it straight away.
Oh, nice.
So you can cast, with 3 mana, you can cast Thingy the Ice, stifle its trigger, so it comes in with no counters.
And then they've got a 7/6 or whatever it is.
Yeah, so it's still a 0/4, but obviously your next spell is enough to flip it because it has no counters on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's stifle. Or it was the dress down. I can't remember. I think you can stifle that trigger to do that. I'm pretty sure you can. I'm taking a very hazardous guess, but the trick anyway is to cheat the thing in the ice. I think it might even be dress down where you play it and it comes in with no counters and then it flips on your next turn. So that's the real threat. It is a race because, 7-8 in Legacy quite quickly with a lot of interaction. They play Daze Force, Will Force Negation is very tricky. So I pivoted because they're obviously on a mono blue deck to shouldered kind of Bowmaster stuff, and they managed their life really well. By the time I landed shoulder, I think it was even turn 2. It was a turn 2 shoulder to put pressure on, and eventually they got down to 1 life. But a big play for them was actually getting down the True Name Nemesis as a blocker. Any attack I would have hit with the shoulder would have guaranteed victory at one point in that game. So they played optimally. They did not make a mistake ever. They were, phenomenal player through the whole both games. Very intense matchup. I lost 0-2. I could put my hands up and say, I'm not trying to say I'm a guru of Doomsday, I'm brilliant or anything. I misplayed the points in that game. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was playing. I didn't know what to pile. Against the other matchups where I won in the Swiss, I knew what I was playing against. I knew what was expected that I had to make. I knew what was expected that I had to do. But Mono Blue Brew was a different animal. I haven't seen it. It caught me off guard, didn't know what to do, especially after being struck by the stifle in game 1. And even the person who overall won the entire tournament, who was the person who beat me in top 8, they lost their only game of Swiss to this deck as well. So I'm not alone in that camp. So yeah, unfortunately the deck didn't make top 8. I think it started 4-0 and then it lost 3 in a row. It was of the day, it was the deck of the day. Everyone was like, did you see this thing in the ice deck? It's crazy. It was just taking bodies left and right. It was fantastic. Yeah, so that was a very quick 0-2 loss, but there's nothing like bringing you back down to reality anyway after starting off 2-0 with a deck you're not used to in a big tournament.
So from a mono blue loss, refresh, reset into round 4, another mono blue deck. We've got Acast. How did that go?
I don't mind the Acast matchup. It comes down to landing an early threat, and I know I mulliganed game 1, and I can't remember if I mulliganed twice, but they played a Patchwork Automaton. I don't know if you know what it is. It's a 2 mana 1/1 with Ward.
With Ward 2.
And it gets a count, yeah. So they played that on turn 1, and they aggroed me out of the game. So it's actually the second game 1 loss in the entire event. This is a thing. I was like, okay, that's grand. Let's, reconvene. It's Acast. Simple. Shouldered. Bowmasters. All they want to do is draw cards.
Mm-hmm.
So I landed Bowmasters turn 2. I don't know if they understood Bowmaster correctly when it first ETB. I don't think they understood the ETBs as well.
Okay.
Because they cast a draw card, and then they had Emery in play, which was their only draw energy left because he had a bit of a stack war before that. I can't remember what their counter belonged to me, but we were kind of limited on resources. I Bowmastered Emery in response, and they were like, okay. And then they drew the card, and I was like, okay, Emery gets shot again. And they're like, what? They thought it was only once off the draw.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if they misplayed or they misunderstood that Bowmaster is just really good against them. Then I apologize. I'm skipping that. That was game 3.
Okay.
Game 2, I done the deep analysis pile against them after exchanging Force of Wills and all the counter magic you would want. Beat them with a very, very quick, very efficient. It was a turn 2 Doomsday, putting a stack to win turn 3 after having a bit of counter war, resolving the Doomsday. Then game 3 was the big game where I resolved the Bowmaster quite quickly against Emery, and eventually Bowmaster took over the game because they were trying to find answers to it. They were just getting hit in the face with a 2-2. And the worst card in the world against Bowmaster is Thought Monitor, because let you draw 2, let me kill the Thought Monitor, and let me get more power on board, because that happened twice in that game. They were just digging for answers as best they could, and they're not wrong in the approach they played. Chalice on 1 is very painful against Doomsday. But then again, Tassa's Oracle, Bowmasters, Knight's Whisper, I still have a lot to do on 2. I'm not limited to just the brainstorms, the ponders, and the Thoughtseize, and the considers and dark rituals. There's things to do on 2. Okay, not as consistent, but there's still things to do on 2. And Bowmaster took over that game, and then they scooped, I think, when I put Shoulder on the stack. Or I had Lethal in play. I just remember Bowmaster took over quickly, killed every threat they tried to play. They couldn't draw out of it. They were just taking 2 or 3 a turn, then up to 4 and 5. I think I put a Shoulder on the stack, and they scooped. So it's not a matchup I'm too afraid of. It is a thing with this deck, and it's a reason I don't like the top 8 matchup, which we'll talk about more later. So swiftly after that, we jumped into round 5.
Okay, so show and tell. Was this like a blue-red like sneak and show variant?
No,
or was this more
no,
like the Omnitel, like the combo variant?
Omnitel.
Yeah. Like blue-green, blue-white, blue-black?
Blue-green. Did they have black? It was definitely blue-green, 100% blue-green.
Yep.
I don't think they had, it was Teamer. They had Teamer, because they had Pyroblast and Postboard.
Okay, yep.
So it was Teamer. Game 1, they multi-5. So I can't say it was a skill-intensive matchup. I played very conservatively. I'm on a slower deck list. I think there was a point I could have raced out to Doomsday, but I didn't necessarily know they were on, and a multi-5, I assumed it was another degenerate combo deck. Kind of was. I didn't know what interaction they'd have, so I played slow a bit. I'm up 2 cards in a deck that draws cards and gives me loads of card selection. They weren't putting pressure on play, they were playing lands and passing. It wasn't until turn 2 and I saw the City of Traders come down. I was like, oh, maybe it's mono red, because they hadn't fetched yet. So I was like, okay, maybe it's not. When I was 50-50 on that. I think I cycled once or twice, and I'm not sure if they knew what I was playing. I think cycling a straight rate would lead me to think Doomsday, but again, Death Shadow is still a deck, so they might thought I was on Death Shadow, because I think I'd cycled 2 or 3 times at this point with street rate. I kept using them every time I drew them. They were putting no pressure on my life. Then they put a show and tell on the stack, and I dazed it, and they had no response. And then I went up to like 5 mana, and I done the safest win on the spot Doomsday pile of us. It's literally enough resources to defend everything and crack the entire pile at once. So that's how I won game 1. Game 2, I brought in Emrakul and Sheldok Isle, and I brought in 1 Shouldered as something to put in against Show and Tell. And how I won that game was I put Emrakul into playoff Show and Tell.
So this is one of those plays that people have kind of always talk about. They always go, oh yeah, you might be able to do it. And a lot of the time it doesn't work because, maybe the opposing player puts the Grizzlebrand into play, draws a load of cards, gets powers into like a sneak and show or whatever. Or maybe, if it is sneak and show, they'll show and tell the sneak attack into play and then fire off their own call at you. But you obviously managed to align the stars to it.
Yeah, so it was a very weird matchup. They obviously knew what I was on, and I knew what they were on, and the game started off very slow. I did Thoughtseize them, and I can't remember what I took. I remember seeing the show and tell, and I left it. And the reason being is at the point when I Thoughtseize, I had multiple Force of Wills. I had a Veil of Summer, and I had the Emrakul.
Did they have an Omniscience, maybe?
I actually can't recall. Maybe I took the Omniscience. I can't recall exactly what I took. The point then came where they put Show and Tell on the stack, and I forced it. No, sorry. They put Show and Tell on the stack, I forced it, they forced back. I Veil of Summered, they forced back, and then there was another Pyroblast by them. And I had one more piece of interaction in hand, but they were down to their last card. And I was like, they have to pass the turn. So I was like, I'm just going to put this Emrakul there. They have to pass the turn. There's nothing they can do that has haste. And they're going to have to sack everything anyway, so they put a Trax in. Now, my favourite part about this was my opponent's reaction, because we both put the card face down. He flipped the Traxa, I flipped Emrakul, and he started doing the attract. He's like, "What? You have that?" And his friend he's actually a friend of a friend. So even afterwards, the buddy I was talking to, who's based up in Dublin in Ireland, he was like, "Oh, this is who you played. You played Dylan, and Dylan done it to you." It was a great moment. It will live on as my favourite win in Paper Magic of all time, just for the reaction alone and the fact that I left it resolved. Like, even one of the judges was there watching the game, and it's like you don't put Emrakul into play on Show and Tell. That's what Show and Tell does. But I had dug for it as well. It's not like it was my opener. I did ponder and brainstorm a few times. Now I'm lucky to find it. But I did have enough interaction to fight against it. But I thought it made more sense to leave the Emrakul go in. They'd have to pass the turn because they weren't on Sneak and Show. So And even if they weren't sneak shove, they put in sneak attack, they had nothing else in hand. And I was like, sure, they have to pass the turn here. I was like, okay, draw 7. I have one more protection spell in hand. Just draw your 7. Try to kill it. It's protected from color spells or whatever. It's tough to remove unless you get your own Emrakul down, take next turn, and make me sack mine. So Emrakul obviously closed out the game very quickly. Very, very quickly. So that was a matchup. I think Doomsday is probably favourite. I think we're heavily faster. I think we're far more interactive. Obviously, if they land the Omniscience, it's bad storytelling for everyone. But it is what it is. So that was rounds 1 to 5. So I'm 4-1 at this stage.
Yeah, so obviously feeling pretty good, but it could still go a little bit downhill. So round 6, Cephalid Breakfast. So another sort of combo deck, but which could have a bit of a fair game plan. How did this one go?
I like this matchup more than I don't know if other people do. I think it's an easier matchup for us for Doomsday. I just think we're quicker. I know they have elements that can really like they can turn 2 win very easily. You know, the Nomad into the Illusionist. They can just win doing that. And that was something that came to prevalence in game 1. But other than that, I know that they have interaction. We have interaction. I have more interaction. I'm playing 4 Force, 4 Days, and 2 Veil of Summers in the main. I'm playing 10 pieces of interaction that stop there, which is quite strong. They're playing Teferi, which, you know, protects them. So game 1, I can't recall if I was on the play. I think they were. I mulliganed quite a lot. Obviously, Doomsday is a deck that mulligans quite well.
Yep.
Being that we need 2 kind of key cards and we can kind of start putting pieces together to whether to win or not. So game 1 was the Deep Analysis pile. Very quick, very efficient. I'm trying to remember. I think I veiled in my upkeep again. It's a thing that I did. You know, the Deep Analysis pile, as quick and efficient as it is, it does leave you vulnerable to everything because you are pitching your hand. So, you know, the very good play, while it's an extra resource, is veiling in your upkeep. You're going to be getting the Cavern anyway, but it's just double protection, especially protecting the cracked LED to cast the Deep Analysis. So I like that part of it too. So that was a very quick game 1.
It's also nice because obviously Veil can be a bit awkward if you do have to cast it in response due to the draw a card effect. So obviously if you've stacked your deck, and sometimes, especially if you're passing the turn with a Deep Analysis pile, you can't afford to draw that card. So having that as your first spell of the turn makes a lot of sense.
Exactly, because even if they make you draw to consider, and then you draw a second card, you know, because like you do it in your upkeep before you draw for turn. So if they do a response and you're forced to draw to consider, you don't care because you're going to cast to consider, and then you draw the Deep Analysis for turn. You know, it's stuck in your hand. You don't necessarily care because you're going to cast consider,
draw the LED, crack the LED, and get rid of the Deep Analysis.
Exactly. So yeah. it still works. So it's a very powerful play. It gives you, especially in a combo deck where you have to become hellbent to win. The Veil in your upkeep gives you protection. And then you have the secondary protection with Cavern Assault. So it's quite efficient. It's double protected, unless you get stifled. But it's double protected in most cases. So I like it. It worked out well. Game 2, after that happened, game 2 is, I probably could have got a slow play warning. Realistically, if I was the opponent, I probably would have called a judge on me. The reason being is, they went first. Turn 1, they played Nomad.
Yeah.
Turn 1, I think I could have put a Doomsday on the stack. But I needed to keep up interaction because the turn 2 win was very possible. And I spent my turn 1 was ages. Like realistically, it was probably like a minute or 2, but it felt like I was in my head for an hour. I was like, do I ponder here? Do I just Doomsday here? I had so many options available, and eventually I think I pondered, and it didn't put the win on the stack because I think pondered was my only blue card that could pitch to force, and I had to get a green source for the possibility of Veil of Summer anyway. So I just remember it was weird play patterns. It took a while to decide, and I opted, look, I'm a game up. I'll take the safer play to put a win on the stack, maybe turn 2 or 3. That was the plan. It kind of worked out that way. They didn't put the Cephalid Illusionist. Now, still to this day, grand it worked out. I don't know if that was the right play. Should I have held up interaction and the fact that they could win turn 2? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what myself on the day thought. But I kind of went with the idea that they're not going to win on turn 2. You know, a lot of the Cephalid Breakfast decks, and it wasn't actually established at this point where they on the Stoneforge package, I believe.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, like, you know, a lot of times they do want the Stoneforge to shoot go straight away. So I'm pretty sure I didn't have that knowledge yet. So inevitably I think I just pondered and I just gathered more resources, kind of stacked the deck in the top 3 cards, left them as it is, drew the second card, then cracked the fetch. And we move into turn 2 for me. And I believe turn 2 for me is, I think I might have brainstormed or something again. I didn't actually go for the win. Oh, no, so I did actually. I got a petal. I got a petal in the pile. I got a petal and I cracked the petal in Doomsday on turn 2. With the option of winning on turn 3. We had fought over Force of Wills and stuff. I had emptied their hand more or less, and they had emptied mine. I can't even remember what was left in my hand at that stage. But the pile I took, and my Edge of Autumns are signed by Kai Sawatari, and they're Japanese. We had to get the judge was watching anyway. The judge knew my opponent, I believe, because they were talking for a while afterwards. And the judge, I actually spoke to him throughout the day. He's a lovely fella, to be fair. I had when it came back to my turn to win the game, I had cracked Edge of Autumn.
Yeah.
I went to move to my end step. I can't remember what they cast, and I cycled Edge of Autumn, and then in response they cast Surgical for 2 life, Surgical Extraction.
Mm.
I had a multiple Edge of Autumns in my pile. I had another Street Raid, I think, in my hand.
Yep.
And I in response, obviously, we had to check to see the cycling actually discard the card first, just to double check. Can you surge? I cycle it. It is in the grave, so you can surge. So there was a judge call for that. It was like 2 seconds. He just translated it. But obviously something I didn't think of. But thank God, very grateful I had another cycler in hand, and I'm very grateful I stacked the deck in the way I did, because I cycled down to my last card. I had 2 cards left. One was a Tassa's Oracle. The last one was another Tassa's Oracle, and I had a Cavern of Stones in my hand.
And for those listening at home, discarding the card is part of the cost. So in this instance, the Surgical can target the Edge of Autumn with the draw on the stack.
And if you don't know what that means, is like they not only do they get to see your pile, but they're taking another cycler out of my deck. They're shuffling up the order, which could ruin my guaranteed win on my next turn. So the plan was to cycle down to the last 2 oracles, leave them there. We'll draw 1 off the last cycle trigger after the Surgical, because again I put the Edge of Autumn ability on the stack, so I still have to draw a card. So I draw I draw Tassa's Oracle with 1 Oracle remaining in library, with enough then to Oracle on my turn. It was something like that. It was I'm pretty sure it was either turn 2 that I started that, or there was at a turn 3. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I remember it started off a petal.
Yep.
And it was a double Oracle triple cycle kind of pile, and it all started on the stack of a Surgical Extraction, which would take away the Edge of Autumn, shuffle my pile, mess up the order. Now theoretically there's probably a very high chance I'd still draw into what I need off the cyclers on my next turn, but they could also win on their turn too. So it was kind of a case, grand, just rush through the pile, clear it, and just have the 2 oracles left. So that was round 6 then of the. Actually, I got my favorite thing about round 6. Now, if people haven't, there might be a picture of. I put a physical picture of my deck list up. A lot of my cards are signed, a lot of them are Japanese and everything. We got deck checked, and even the judge said my deck was stunning. It was probably my favorite part of round 6. We got deck checked at the start of round 6, and I got complimented on the aesthetically pleasing nature of my deck.
It is very pretty. If anyone wants to see, the picture is available in the Doomsday Discord under the deck lists and reports section, so do feel free to have a little look. My only gripe is you have white borders around your dual lands. If you could just fix that.
Peasantry is a problem. Although a friend of mine has switched all their white border duels to black border duels. They're all foreign black border.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future I might look to make that change, but finding them signed again will be very hard.
Yeah. So I did the switch to FBB German over lockdown as part of the madness to cope with isolation. It was not the financially most sound decision, but my deck looks a lot nicer now as a result.
Yeah. Now, I think for the meme factor and the trigger factor, I think I'd switch to a white border basic.
Ooh.
If I had all black border duels. Just when someone else is going through your Doomsday, after you Doomsday, and they look through your deck and it's like, why? You have €700 dual lands here. Why do you have a white border basic? Just something like that, maybe. But if I had less sense and more money, I would switch to foreign black borders.
So, final round of the Swiss, you did ID. Did you know what the deck you were potentially going to be facing was before you offered the ID, or was it your opponent offered it based on the stat?
So the way the standings worked, and I think I have a photo you can see. We took a photo to work out. Now the person on mono blue brew that beat me was actually in a position. He was in 8. If he won his game, he would have made top 8 with a 5 and 2. Whereas everyone else is 5, 1 and 1 and better. Now, I knew I was safe if my opponent wanted the ID, because I had already played them.
Yeah.
Similar with the winner, they were safe from that as well. They weren't going to get paid down because they've already played that person. So there's a few ifs and haws looming. Is like, oh my god, who's going to actually have to play this game in the top 8?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know which opponent got matched up, but my opponent came up to me, and I've actually become very friendly with him. We've talked a bit there over Messenger and everything afterwards. And he actually won overall player of the weekend because he top 8'd both days.
Yeah.
Yeah, he came up to me and he's like, "You're on Doomsday. I've been watching a few of your games. Very nice, very brilliant." And he openly told me, he goes, "Look, I knew what you were going to be playing, so I'm playing Scam." So we had a good time. He was like very nice to tell me, because I could have, like, obviously because of the way the pairings would have went, I wouldn't have played him in the first bracket of top 8, but there was a potential to play him at some point. Now, I imagine everyone in top 8 knows that everyone's playing anyway, because you can see across to each other and everything. So I don't think that was ever an issue, but he did have the transparency to literally tell me what he's playing. And we went through our different Swiss. We had a great conversation. Very nice fella. Hopefully probably meet him at a bunch more Legacy events. But yeah, no, he openly told me he was on Scam. He came up to me. I saw his record from the Melee app. It said 5-1-1.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 5-5-1. He had 5 wins, 1 loss. There was no draw yet. I had no draw yet. And they're like, "Would you like to draw?" And obviously he's like, "Yeah, I can go get coffee now," or something was his response.
I believe it was Giuseppe.
Giuseppe, that's exactly who it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've met before. Absolutely lovely chap in the UK Legacy scene.
Unbelievably lovely. Well deserving of best player of the weekend as well. He got top 8 twice. So, he picked up an extra prize and 2 dual lands for his trouble.
Very nice. Not too shabby. So, final match, spoiler alert, final match of the event. Quarterfinals going in against a local player to me, a guy called Ross, who I know to be a very active Elves player, but obviously, you're going in blind. How did the quarterfinal game go?
I knew he was on Elves and he knew I was on Doomsday. We'd seen each other play at various points, again at the top tables. The thing I messed up was the variants of Elves he was on. He was on this Fiend Artisan Cradle Control, or Nightmare on Elf Street, as what it was conventionally called. Now, game 1, right? I don't know. Look, it could be a series of things. We're Irish. We were out drinking the night before. It was a long day. My first major tournament, I suppose, that I'm top 8ing. I am mentally drained from having to put together Doomsday piles all day. It could be very much a lot of reasons. I thought I was dead. I had my life tracked at 7. I checked the page multiple times. For anyone, basically from background context, is James had spoken to Ross, who's the James Deutsche here, spoken to Ross afterwards, and Ross had sent a message to James. And I read it, and I read it, and I read it. I had sent my response, took no notice, but I reread it again, and I kept playing it back. He said I was at 1 life. I put myself at 0 life. So there was a difference in life total, and it could be me tired, or he might have missed me cracking a fetch, or when he tapped an elf for mana, I might have thought it was an attack. But basically, the pivotal turn it came down to is I had made a Doomsday pile, I had passed the turn, and I was on 7 in my track life, and I think they might have had me on 8. So I had calculated they had a Gaia's Cradle in play, they had a Collector Oof in play, and they had a Dork in play and an Allosaur Shepherd in another land. So they could turn on the Allosaur Shepherd by tapping the elf, but still only have 1 elf in play, being the Allosaur Shepherd, and the Collector Oof to deal 7. So as in my head is, if they top deck a land, I die. They top deck a land, fetch for a Dryad Arbor, done the thing, attack for 7, so I died. In the message Ross sent you,
yep,
I think I've read it that I was at 1 after that attack. If I was at 1 after that attack, I won on my turn. I took a pile that had no life cycling. It was consider a blank card, cycle, whatever it was. Do you know?
Yeah.
I think it was triple cycle, something like that. I can't remember exactly what it took. But all I knew was I needed to get to my turn and live. And the only way to live was to not have him draw a land. Now, it could be a misplay by me, it could be a miscalculation by him, miscalculation by me. Whatever the reason, Ross played absolutely optimal to win game 1. Now, game 1 happened is, I had a feeling there on Elves. A very good friend of mine is also a very committed Elves player. We've played the matchup a lot. I don't like the matchup. Now, I know Doomsday players can iffy on it, because even if you look up like older meta breakdowns or Sideboard guides or anything, it kind of puts it like a 60-40 or split or something on Doomsday's favour. Because of the aggressiveness of the cards I play on my life total, creature decks are annoying. Especially in game 1, before I can take out Night's Whispers and take out Deep Analysis and stuff like that.
And I think this is also a symptom of obviously the slower nature. So obviously only 2 personal tutor not having so many petals, this is probably one of the knockbacks of the deck building decisions made.
Yeah, look, again, I cannot take anything away from Ross. Like, even I watched the rest of the top 8 afterwards. He played phenomenal in every game. There's no fault in his part whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's no me being terrible that, I misplayed, I miscounted, whatever the reason may be. He took both games. Game 2 was a bit of a non-game. We'll talk about that in a second. But game 1 was the big one. I opened up with, I have myself marked down to 19, so I fetched. And I think in the message he sent you, I just played Underground Sea. Okay, so I think this is where the first mispoint of life happens. But I played out, knowing full well they play Collector Roof in the list, I played out the LED because I didn't want a natural in order for something that can kill me. I wanted them to take care of the thing because in this matchup, I don't like to do the deep analysis plan because it takes too much life. So I got rid of that. I played it out as bait. They went for it. There's a play that he mentioned, which I think might be right. Although I still kind of stand by my argument is I dazed his turn 1 out after I pondered and played the LED. Again, I'm trying to slow them down because I'm fearing Atraxa or Progenitus. I don't know if you like the idea. Like, if you Doomsday in the face of Progenitus, you are dead.
I think it's it really depends on the context of your hand, right? I think a lot of the time you probably just let them play the elf if you can get the win or at least start the win on the next turn.
Yeah.
And even if they Doomsday, if they Doomsday Natural Order Progenitus, Natural Order Atraxa, you don't care. They can draw all the cards they want, and it doesn't really matter. It's only Hoof that you really worry about, right?
Yeah, but it's like if I'm Doomsdaying in the face, if I just if they Natural Order ahead before I Doomsday, I have to do a win on turn spot pile because I just half my life, so I'm Lord in 10 anyway.
Yeah.
So Progenitus kills me. So it's just it's a matchup I've played. I know a lot of people, Doomsday players will prefer it. It's a matchup I've played. My buddy is a better player than me. He beats me down every time we've done this with Elves and Doomsday, but I'm so used to the combo Elves, I wasn't expecting this Fiend Artisan stuff. So like I brought in Bowmasters expecting to face the Glimpse of Thing, which never came. So game 1, I lost. Could have won, possibly. Game 2, no matter what happened, I would have lost anyway. It was a multi-5. I kept the shakiest 5 ever, and I Thoughtseize them, and their hand was like double Thoughtseize, Mind Break, Trap. They had everything. And I was like, oh, this game is done. I think I opened with a Shelldock Isle. I'm pretty sure I opened with a Shelldock Isle because I didn't want to multi-4. Maybe I should have multi-4. Again, I'm going to put it down to long day, inexperience of the deck in a big setting, inexperience of the deck in general. I might have played a total of maybe 10 leagues with it, maybe 15 pushing it, a bunch of practice matches in paper, one previous paper side event. I can make all the excuses in the world, but I misplayed, I miscalculated, I lost game. I got punished for inexperience. I'm not afraid to say it. We all learn somewhere, we all start somewhere. I'm happy my first big paper legacy event was a top 8 with Doomsday.
And did you get some nice swag for your placement?
Yeah, so it was a dual land, so I got a Taiga. Well, I suppose we talk about game 2. Game 2 was Shelldock Isle. I put a Tassa's Oracle underneath it. I knew I could have won if I flipped an Emrakul out of my top 4.
Yeah.
Because obviously all I need is a Doomsday and Emrakul is coming into play the same turn.
Yeah.
You know, that will kill Elves very quickly because they won't recover after losing all their lands and creatures. Obviously the dream never happened, and I got double Thoughtseize, I got Mind Break Trap, they had Endurance. So like to win that game, I'd need a lot of counter magic while they were chipping away with me at small creatures to get through double Thoughtseize, Endurance, and Mind Break Trap. And of course, Ross won. We had a great chat about it. He thinks I'm favoured in the matchup. Against that version, if I knew I was against the critical draw, I think I'm favoured in that matchup.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're as explosive as the Glimpse of Nature. But like he played phenomenally because for the entirety until midway game 2 when I saw Fiend Artisan, I was still fully convinced he was on Glimpse of Nature. And I brought in Bowmaster. The hand was a Bowmaster keep. I shot the first Dork to buy myself some time. I was like, Grant, if he plays Glimpse of Nature here, like his board is gone. And then Fiend Artisan comes down. I'm like, oh my god, I misplayed drastically.
I've fucked up.
Yeah, that's literally it. It was that meme play because I think like I have a habit of playing as well. If you're seeing me playing a paper, I don't know. It's just the lads that have also like we play Cube and stuff together. There, we meet up and play Cube, and we always take the piss out of each other basically. And one of the lads says, you know, the way I have a habit of certain sitting and stuff, and he's like, yeah. There's times I can look so pissed even though I'm winning and in great form, like it's just you're focusing or whatever. And he was like, no, you could see in that moment, in that one moment, you knew it wasn't Dylan's normal way of sitting or anything, or his normal way of it was like, this is it. He fucked it. But look, again, hands out to like Ross played phenomenally through the whole event. Like you don't win it. Obviously, you don't win it without a bit of luck, but you don't win it playing poorly either. You know, it's a combination of both. And watching him through the rest of the top 8, like he played like. The big thing is Cork is a small community of especially Legacy Magic players. 3 of us travelled to play on the Saturday. 1 didn't buy a ticket in time, so we actually had 4 travelling to play the Legacy. They played on Sunday. 2 of us 4 made top 8. The other on Acast, who finished second in the final to Ross. So Ross took down both of us. But yeah, no, look, he played phenomenally. You can see very clearly he's very well experienced with his deck as well.
And hands up, I have to say, I'm probably the one to blame for giving him all the Doomsday practice.
Yeah, so look, I can blame you another time. You can buy me a pint.
Do you know what? Yeah, done. I'll grab you a pint next time we bump into each other.
Yeah, but no, look, to be fair to him, he played phenomenally. And as a prize, look, I was happy to get a top 8, and getting a Taiga on top of it was great. And the Taiga now has since been traded off to a friend because trying to get more people into Legacy.
Very good.
So, like, the thing is, with our play group, like, I know you're saying there earlier, like, we had a conversation before this interview. Very quick conversation. In my play group anyway, cards are belonging to the play group. Now, obviously, I might own my lands, my dual lands or whatever, but if I'm not using them, anyone else can use them. So, like, committing that Taiga to our play group is more or less forever. And there's one person in our group looking to get into Legacy to play Rhinos, which won the main event, Legacy main event day 2, is trying to build Rhinos, and he was short of Taiga as well. So, you know, it's helping keeping the format alive. I got a nice prize out of it, got a great day of Magic, and got to kill a lot of people with a fish.
So, obviously, after the event then, you've already kind of discussed some of the changes you're looking to make. Obviously, you mentioned this winner box that you've got coming up. What's the plan? Is it run it back with just those 2 swaps, you know, the Cabal Ritual out, the second Night's Whisper out, or is it a bit more of a aggressive cut?
No, because this is, like, again, this is coming into a paper event where I expected a lot of scam. I expected, you know, people aren't going to pay £70 entry fee to Axion to play a lot of meme decks. It's an expensive tournament to get into, which it's good prize support, but it is an expensive tournament. This winner box thing that I was talking to you about, it's going to be proxy friendly, based in Ireland. You know, it's not even like supported or anything by Wizard. It's someone's just deciding to run it. Like, it's very much of, oh, the community is responding well to Legacy being popular. Let's do something. So it's very hard to prep for this because anyone and anyone can bring anything and anything. There's no budget. I'm going to bring Doomsday. I love casting it. Changes I'm going to make is, I think I'm going to bring in the Grief. I think I'm going to cut One Night's Whisper for Grief. I am very high in Grief. Even before Scam, like just in general as a card. I remember when Wonder Pro, or however you pronounce the thing.
Yeah, Wonder Pro,
when they started playing the Grief, I remember even messaging them way back then, asking about it, because I thought it was the coolest inclusion ever. It made sense, because before Grief, I wanted to try, what's the Reanimator card? Unmask. I wanted to try Unmask in Doomsday. Similar thing, because I'm very high in this deep analysis pile, which is resource, very efficient. Having a free way to interact before you discard your hand with LED is very nice, along with having the upkeep Veil of Summers. So more ways to interact like that is something I like. The other thing is, I'm not sure. I'm definitely cutting the Cabal Ritual. The Cabal Ritual 100% is being cut. I don't like it. I'm not a full-on turbo version. I don't see the need in playing it. I think if I'm doing that on turn 2, I know you can do turn 1 off a Petal to get into this. I think turn 2ing naturally in Cabal Ritual as even a rare of is, I don't think it's good enough.
Yep.
So I'm not sure if that's going to be the cut for Grief. But I definitely want to put a second discard card in there, and I think it's going to be Grief just to enable some more pile defense and pile offense. I think I'm definitely fixing the fetch lands. I've already ordered to the day I came back, so I already ordered to fix those fetch lands. Obviously, I have to make them all bordered as well. Then, what was the other card? Night's Whispers. I'm not sure what to do them. I think I'll change them. The majority list will stay the same. The main 3 changes will be the Cabal Ritual, Double Night's Whisper, maybe One Night's Whisper. I do like the card. I don't know what I'm going to run it into up there. Like, the last Paper Legacy event we had in Ireland was like last April. Not even like April 6 months ago, but the year before. So we're talking 18 months ago. And there was a fair mismatch. Like, obviously the format was different then. I think that was even pre-MH2, like that was pre-Solitude, pre-Brief, pre-Fury, pre-MH2, pre-Ragavan ban and everything. And it was before, obviously, Bowmasters and before Beseech. So, I don't know, people, will they want to try out Beseech because it's the new hot thing? It's all free to try out. I know one or two people want to try lands, which I don't mind against. So, I don't actually know how I'm going to prep for it. I think the main will relatively stay the same.
Okay.
The changes will come in the form of a Night's Whisper or two and the Cabal Ritual.
And then sideboard, you said Bowmasters possibly come out?
I just look in a competitive event. I think I take them again. It didn't come up. Come up, so it's hard to truly give out about it. It's like it might sound like I spoke harshly about it the whole time, but it's a very good card. But it didn't come up enough. And even when it came up, I thought I was against the wrong version of a deck, which completely killed it. Because, I had a safe enough hand, granted it was starting on a Shelldock Isle, but I also had a Petal, so turn 2 Bowmasters with a Ponder and everything. It looked well, it looked okay, it looked safe enough to keep on at multi-5.
But you did also mention, obviously, in the 8-cast matchup,
it's the best. Exactly. It's the best card in the world against Acast, which again is a deck that it can be very quick. Again, I lost game 1 to Acast from that automaton because I got too big too quick, and creature matchups can do that in a slow version of Doomsday where you're on a lot of life loss. Like, you have to remember 1 Thoughtseize. I know some people play 3. Very rarely you'll cast 3 Thoughtseize though in the same game. Whereas the temptation to cast Night's Whisper, you're losing 2 life again, but you're going up cards, digging deeper, is very high. You will, if you're doing the deep analysis pile, you are taking 3. You also have to account for the fetches and top of all that. So, like triple Street Rate, which you will cast at some point, I imagine, or throughout the game. So let's consider that as 6. Thoughtseize is 8. Double Night's Whisper is 12. Deep analysis is 15. And you're playing way more than 5 fetches. So the capability of hitting yourself for lethal is very existent in this format. Doomsday, which makes it very realistic that creature decks are bad for you, which is where Bowmasters then shines, because a lot of creatures would still be X1s. I know they're kind of getting phased out. But you can still kill a Delver before it flips, you can still a Dragon Rage before it gets big, you can kill Talia, that's annoying, you can shoot down Tall Monitors in response to its trigger. You can kill Emeries very easily. You can kill opposing Bowmasters. Like, you can name targets for days, and it's always going to look good. It didn't come up enough in that event for me to criticize it enough. When it did come up, it came up in 2 occasions where I actually played it, and one occasion it won. Second occasion it didn't win because I misplayed and I thought I was against the Glimpse Elf deck and not the Fiend Artisan Elf, the Cradle Control-y, whatever they call it now. Big difference, because if people don't know, Glimpse of Nature with Elves, basically you draw like 7 cards, more or less. Yeah. With Orcish Bowmasters, if they do that, they lose their board. Cradle Control doesn't care because it's just going to not draw. Atraxa doesn't draw cards if you ever get a Bowmaster against it. The other thing is Fiend Artisan doesn't care because it's just going to find the creature it wants anyway. So that was a big misplay with me. So it came into effect twice in 7 rounds. Well, 7 rounds played, 1 ID'd. Once it worked great, the other time it didn't. So it's hard to judge it. Again, it's a very long-winded answer of saying, I'm not sure will I bring it this weekend. And whether you should bring it or not, it's probably a decision you need to make in the meta call. If you're expecting a lot of A-cast, which again is a very high chance deck, it doesn't run any reserveless cards. It's very budget for Legacy. I'm imagining A-cast is maybe €600, €700, which sounds like a lot of money. But in a format where €300 to €400 lands are staples, it's quite cheap, and it's a very quick, efficient deck. It's one of the best cards against it. Like the list that finished second is down to 6 cast because my buddy decided to cut 2 Taunt Monitors because of Orcish Bowmasters, and it's just a card that preys on that deck. It's a budget deck into Legacy. If you're going to a competitive event, I think it's very hard to justify not bringing Bowmasters against other Bowmasters decks and A-cast decks. Other sideboard cards, subtlety, because I don't know what I'm playing against. I think the 2/2 split's good enough. If you're coming into a predictive metagame, I think you can go 3/1 towards force negation if it's a very combo meta. I think I'd nearly consider 4 Veil of Summer because of the prevalence of blue everywhere. 1 mana Cryptic Command is still one of the most powerful things you can do in Magic. Counter your stuff, make me protected, and draw a card. Yeah, other than that, I'm pretty happy to sideboard. It didn't come the big card we didn't talk about, and I know it can split fences. I think you're on the side of the fence that you like lands in the sideboard.
I do, yeah. I personally run a second basic island in my sideboard.
Yeah, so it's something I thought was this is a very different debate that I see people give out about all the time. Lands in sideboards, it took me a long time to understand it, but it's great. The land in my sideboard is for wasteland. I have 1 green source in the main. A lot of the wasteland decks play blue. The main card I have to protect me against blue, which also lets me draw a card, so I lose nothing, they go down. If they force Veil of Summer, you have to remember, they're going down 2 cards and you don't go down a card. It's very powerful. So Tropical Island as my only green source in the main, in a deck against Scam, in a deck against that mono blue brew, where they do play wastelands, bringing in the Bayou is very important. And you might think I'd cut another land for it, but I actually go to the 16 land.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably expect you cut something like a Cabal Ray or even a Petal, because you basically want to go up permanent land sources.
Exactly. I'd keep the Petal. It's the Cabal Ritual nearly got cut in every game 2 going. I don't think I kept it once. I don't know. I just don't like it as a one-off. I think if you're going all in Turbo Doomsday, by all means go Cabal Ritual. For playing a slow play like I am, okay, you have the niche factor that you can Doomsday turn 1. In a lot of cases with this list, while you can still win turn 2 because of the Deep Analysis pile and the 1 mana Consider to start it, the 1 mana Chain to win, it just feels bad having to commit a Petal and a Cabal Ritual to Doomsday with no way to crack, no way to protect, no nothing. A land, a Petal and Dark Ritual still gives you 1 mana up to protect yourself. Whether it be you get a Veil of Summer, or you get a Daze, or you get another blue card for force. I just don't like Cabal Ritual as a one-of, especially in a slower list. So that would be the big thing there. But people often say when they saw the land, well, when I used to think, I always thought you board out a land to bring in a land. No, you go up to 16. You play Wasteland, Bayou comes in, Cabal Ritual comes out, you go up to 16. You get double access to green, which gives you double Veil of Summer turns, which is a huge benefit. Because in matchups where you're bringing in Bayou, you are bringing in Veil of Summer. They come hand in hand. It's very rare you bring in one without the other, I imagine, because the reason you want a second green source is to reliably cast Veil of Summer.
Well, thank you very much for this. It's been really enjoyable, really interesting listening to your exploits over the weekend. Congratulations on your placement. If people want to hear more about what you're doing or talk to you about Magic or Legacy or Doomsday, do you have any socials where they can hit you up?
You can probably find me on Twitter using StiffKakuna. You can find me on Discord using that username. I'm happy to talk over Discord. I don't stream. I don't engage too much with content that way. Just play as much as I can and have time for. That's the downside. We spoke at the start about being an adult with money. The downside of being an adult is you have responsibility. You don't have time.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that's it. But for anyone like myself who would have been interested in Doomsday but found it far too complicated or puzzling, as someone who would have just started getting interested in watching the deck before Tassa's Oracle to after Tassa's Oracle, things have drastically improved. Now, there's a load of people, there's yourself. For content, there's Max Stortion, there's Lucas Fasoli, Wonder Pro, Saratarix, Martin Nielsen, Bosch and Roll does a lot of the legacy content. And I think even if you're learning a specific deck, the content creators like, Brian Cook, Bosch and Roll, and Traven U, while they don't specifically play Doomsday, they play a lot of games. So you see every deck in its form. Like, they're playing a lot of leagues. They have videos up nearly every day. So you see a lot of content, a lot of leagues. It gets you to understand things. And a big video for me learning Doomsday, and it's very funny because, it's a deck you can read about. Like, James runs the wiki there, which has breaking down the piles. Max Torsion has a fantastic free Sideboard guide in his Twitter. The Sideboard guide itself might be a bit outdated, but it gives you, the understanding of Doomsday. But the big one, it's a great video, and I sometimes go back to watch just to see their thought processes. Traven U Phil Gallagher, has a video from about maybe a year or two ago where he tries to learn Doomsday.
And I remember this because I was messaging Phil, I think, afterwards.
he failed in the first iteration, but he made a second video, right? And it's like, I think it's like labeled something like Phil gets slightly better in brackets or something. And it's actually a great video to watch because you're watching someone with no experience or no real insight other than a quick brief read of all the materials available. Like, this deck has been written about forever. Like, I haven't invented a wheel. I put a small little different iteration spin on a list of Kai Sawatari that I agreed with, that I thought played nicely, and I just put back in deep analysis because I think it's an underrated card to ever cut because it can win games on the spot. But like, the content is there to learn it. But why Phil's second video is so good is he messages his opponent in round 1. I only watched it again recently, and he tells them that he's on Doomsday and he's like trying to figure out this pile. And he takes out a pen and paper and he writes down how to do this pile, and he gets a turn 1 win because he took the time to think and mechanically figure out how the deck works. Anyone can do it. It does just take a small bit of brain power. It is probably one of the more complicated decks to play in a live environment. It was one of my biggest fears coming into to play Axion with it because I didn't think I'd dexterously be good enough to make piles quickly. But you'd be surprised how much you goldfish with a deck like this. The way I kind of practice when I was goldfishing, if I didn't have people to play with, like I'd have, goldfish there at home while I'm watching Netflix or something. I'd always aggressively attack my own life and try to figure out a pile on the spot with like 4 life or something, You kind of learn this way. You learn through trial and error. I'm very happy for my top 8 finish with it. I'm very happy with how I played overall. Could have played tighter in some scenarios, especially in the top 8. But there's lots of resources out there. Anyone can learn it. And it's literally time it's time to play Fish Day for everyone. It's too fun a deck. It's way too good. It's one of the most enjoyable wins you can put in the stack. Your opponent might be a bit miffed, but you will have fun putting fish on the stack.
Well, thank you very much. We'll close it there. I'll put links to everything discussed about in the description. I'll put a link to the Phil Gallagher video as well, as discussed. I'll also put a link if you send it over to me for the Irish Legacy Community Discord or wherever you guys talk, because if anyone is interested in that community, I'm sure there's events coming up, as we've said, that they'd be really interested in seeing. So, Dylan, thank you so much again for this, and hopefully we'll see some more results from you in the near future.
Thanks for this, James. Thanks for the time.